I mean, everybody says, oh, you must go, it's like Eden, and you say, yeah, sure. But once you get there, you really understand what they're talking about. It's extraordinary. I mean, it's just the most amazingly magical place.
It happened in an instant. A bright, artificial kitchen, the smell of hot studio lights and hairspray. It's 1969, season 5. The cameras are rolling on Bewitched. Dick York is standing there, trying to be Darrin Stephens. He's trying to be the exasperated, lovable husband we all invited into our living rooms every week. He's delivering a line. He's doing his job. And then he goes pale. He sways, and he drops. Right there on the linoleum floor of 1164 Morning Glory Circle. He didn't trip, he didn't stumble, his body just quit. The crew rushed in. The silence on that soundstage must have been deafening. You can picture it, can't you? The panic, the whispers. But here is the thing that keeps me up at night. Here is the cold, hard truth that Hollywood has tried to scrub from the history books. When they wheeled him out of that studio, broken and in agony, Dick York didn't know it was the end. He thought he'd be back. He thought his friends, his TV family, would be waiting for him. He was wrong. Elizabeth Montgomery, the woman who played his wife, the woman who laughed with him for 5 years, never called him, not once. She never visited. She never wrote a note. The door slammed shut, locked tight, and she threw away the key. How does a bond that strong turn into a silence that cold? That's the story they didn't put in the fan magazines. That's the story we're going to talk about today. To understand the betrayal, you have to understand the pain. And I don't mean actor pain, where they complain about a long day in the trailer. I mean physical, bone-grinding agony. Dick York wasn't a drug addict. He wasn't a party animal. He was a blue-collar actor who showed up to work. But he was walking around with a ticking time bomb in his spine. It started 10 years before Bewitched, back in 1959. He was filming a Western called They Came to Cordura. Hard work, rugged terrain. There was a scene with a hand car, those heavy iron rail cars you pump by hand. A crew member slipped, the handle swung back, and snap. York described it later as an explosion in his back. The muscles tore, the spine shattered. In today's world, he would have had surgery, rehab, 6 months off. But this was the old days. This was the era of shut up and do your job. Men didn't complain. They took a pill, they drank a scotch, and they went back to work. So that's what he did. He strapped on a back brace and swallowed the painkillers the doctors handed out like candy. By the time he landed the role of Darrin Stephens in 1964, he was already hurting. But he had that charm, didn't he? That rubber-faced, frantic energy. He was brilliant. And in the beginning, the magic was real. Don't let anyone tell you they hated each other from the start. That's a lie. In those first few seasons, Elizabeth Montgomery and Dick York were electric. They weren't having an affair. She was married to the show's producer, William Asher. But they had a rhythm. They giggled between takes. They had a secret language. You can't fake that kind of chemistry. But Hollywood is a cruel machine, and Bewitched was a beast. It wasn't just a show, it was a cash cow. The schedule was brutal, and as the seasons wore on, York's back began to scream. Imagine having to do physical comedy, falling over sofas, reacting to explosions, jerking your head around, while your spine feels like it's on fire. He would do a scene, smiling and laughing, and the second the director yelled cut, he would collapse, sweating, shaking. The stagehands knew. They were the good guys. They started hiding folding chairs behind the furniture on the set so Dick could sit down for 30 seconds while they reset the lights. They built a slanted board for him to lean on because standing up straight was torture. But you know who stopped noticing? Or maybe stopped caring? Elizabeth. This is where the story gets dark. This is where the perfect TV wife starts to look a lot more like a corporate boss. By season 4, the warmth was gone. Elizabeth Montgomery was a professional, sure. She was the star. She was the daughter of Robert Montgomery. She came from Hollywood royalty. She didn't have time for weakness. And her husband, William Asher, was running the show. His job was to bring the episode in on time and under budget. Dick York was becoming a problem. He was missing days. He was slow. He was sick. and instead of compassion, he got the cold shoulder. Sources from the set say the air around Elizabeth turned icy. She stopped joking with him. She stopped asking how he was. She would stand there, waiting for him to pull himself together, tapping her foot. Can you imagine the isolation? You're in pain. You're doing your best to feed your family, and the woman you've worked beside for years looks at you like a broken prop that needs to be thrown out. Then came the collapse in 1969, the ambulance ride. Dick York later said he begged them. He called the producers from his hospital bed. He said, "Give me a few weeks. I'll rest. I'll be back to finish the season." He wanted to work. He loved Darrin Stephens. But the phone didn't ring back. They didn't just fire him. They erased him. One day, Darrin Stephens was Dick York. The next day, he was Dick Sargent. No explanation, no farewell, Dick, no tribute episode. Just a new face in the same suit, reciting the same lines. It was gaslighting on a national scale. They treated the audience like we were stupid, and they treated Dick York like he was dead. And Elizabeth? Silence. This is the part that breaks my heart. Dick York sat at home, recovering, staring at the phone. He waited. A week, a month, a year. Surely Elizabeth would call. Surely she would say, "I'm sorry it ended this way, Dick. We miss you." Nothing. He sent her letters. Did you know that? He tried to reach out. He wanted closure. He wanted to know why his friend had turned into a stranger. She never answered. Why? Was it guilt? Was she ashamed of how they treated him? Or was it something colder? Was she just a company woman protecting her husband's show? There were rumors, of course. People whispered that maybe Dick York was in love with her, and she froze him out to protect her marriage. Others said she just couldn't handle the reality of his illness, that it was too messy, too ugly for her pristine world. But the result was the same. He was cast out into the wilderness. And the wilderness was harsh. After Bewitched, the roles dried up. You know how this town is. Once you're labeled sick or difficult, you're finished. Dick York, the man who made millions of people laugh, ended up destitute. I'm not using that word lightly, destitute. By the mid-70s, he and Joan, his rock, the woman who actually stood by him, were living on welfare. They were cleaning apartments to buy groceries. The residuals from Bewitched were peanuts back then. The man was a legend, and he was deciding between heating oil and food. But here is where Dick York proved he was a better man than any of the executives who fired him. He didn't get bitter. He didn't go to the tabloids and trash Elizabeth Montgomery. He could have sold his story for a fortune. He could have painted her as a villain, but he didn't. In every interview, until the day he died, he called her lovely. He called her talented. He protected her image, even though she wouldn't even acknowledge his existence. He found a new purpose. From his sickbed in Michigan, tethered to an oxygen tank, he started a charity called Acting for Life. He made phone calls to get help for the homeless. He used his fading fame to get food and coats for people who had nothing. He was dying of emphysema. His spine was a wreck. He was broke, and he was worried about other people. Dick York died on February 20th, 1992. He was only 63. He died in his wife's arms, listening to the radio. And still, the silence from the Bewitched camp was deafening. Elizabeth Montgomery lived another 3 years. She continued to work. She continued to be a star. But in all that time, she never spoke his name publicly. She gave interviews about the show, about the magic, about the costumes, but when it came to the man who built that show with her, a ghost. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? When she was lying in her own hospital bed in 1995, fighting the cancer that would eventually take her life, did she think of him? Did she regret the letter she never answered? Did she regret the phone call she never made? We will never know. Hollywood loves a happy ending. They like to pretend the cast reunions are all hugs and smiles. But the story of Dick York and Elizabeth Montgomery is the real story of Tinseltown. It's a story about how disposable you are. One minute you're the co-star, the partner, the friend. The next minute you're an inconvenience. Dick York deserved better. He gave his body for that show. He gave his dignity, and in return,
He got silence. But he won in the end, didn't he? He died with his soul intact. He died helping others. He didn't need their applause. The next time you catch a rerun of Bewitched and you see Darrin sweating, looking a little too frantic, looking a little too pale, don't just laugh. Remember what he was hiding. Remember the pain behind the eyes. And remember the phone call that never came. Because the real witchcraft wasn't the nose wiggle. It was how quickly they made a good man disappear.